For a while now, I've been talking about privacy issues and how they impact all of us with respect to the Fourth Amendment. It's something I've been concerned about for a lot longer than it's been the case that I have been forced to register and convicted of a crime I would not have committed. This has been something that's been bothering me probably years before that. I don't remember exactly how long, maybe 10 years. I saw it when I was in administration. I saw it when I was teaching this very difficult nexus between, where do you draw the line, basically, between protecting somebody's sovereign rights to be left alone and protecting the public's right to know, or the public's need to, self-protect and preserve, the public good. And that's really kind of a tricky thing that the courts have been wrestling with ever since the Fourth Amendment and the Fifth Amendment were enacted, and to some lesser degree the Sixth and the Seventh, depending on what we're talking about. But here comes a case out of Alabama, and I believe the 11th Circuit, which threatens to blow all this up and really kicks at the heart of the Fifth and the 14th Amendment to the Constitution. And without going into the entire thing, it is a case of a man named Bruce Henry, who, like so many of us, are forced to register, and we have children. And this has been devastating to us and to our families, and has caused real harm to children, which is, of course, the irony, because the idea is we're going to keep you away from your children, and in that regard, somehow, we're going to protect children. And this is also another reason why we ought to take these so-called sex offense cases on a case-by-case basis. We have a tendency to view these in a very large measure, certainly with respect to registry, which is the final outcome of all these cases, unless you have a civil commitment issue, and then that makes it even far worse. But what's similar in all these cases is you always end up on the registry. You're always treated exactly the same. So whether you're caught on the low end in a Romeo and Juliet case where the police decide that they're going to get involved in something to rack up their CP stats when there's no CP at all, just a young person, usually a young male, turns 18 and his girlfriend is 16, turns 17, and he's up on CP charges because one of the parents overreacted to something. And instead of using it as youthful dating indiscretion at the most, it becomes a felony child pornography charge. So you have that realm of tragedy to a 6, 7, 8, 9-year-old who decided to act out very inappropriately with a younger sibling, and they're on a sex offender registry or what have you. It doesn't matter what it is. But Bruce Henry is a man in Alabama who just wanted to live in the same house and participate in his children's lives and be their parent. And whether you agree whether he made a mistake or not, he served his time. And one of our tenets in society is if you served your time, it should be over. But the problem is, with the sex offense registry, they have enabled the registry, that is our government, as a political weapon and as a social weapon against the citizenry, thereby emboldening a certain degree of the citizenry to come after people who just want to put their lives back together. This has happened to me in the last 48 hours. Somebody came after me. They're still coming after me, despite the fact that I've done a video, I think 2 weeks ago or something, talking about how people have started adding me to sites that I didn't ask to be added to, how they put, like ghosted, fabricated text messages and such. And again, the proof burden is so high for us, but the burden for anybody else is very low. And so you have the case of Mr. Henry, who just wants to be in the same house with his child and participate, and his children don't understand why dad can't come home, why he's not there. And we have cases here in Virginia and everywhere else, the exact same thing. Families are falling apart because the breadwinner can't win any bread anymore, because he can't get a job, because the felony status is so stacked against him. When governments like Virginia here do try to do something, and Governor Youngkin did try to do something, they hand selected 4 or 5 or 6 different jobs that they wanted filled. None of them were amazing paying jobs like working at Goodwill, right? So even when they get involved, they reach in and decide what they want you to do. Okay, when there's a whole list of 5 to 7 things, pages really, of things that you're prohibited from doing. And I know I was involved in that decision in my capacity as coordinator of higher education services for prisons and jails, and I informed the governor's task force about this, and they were rather surprised about this. They were shocked. They didn't want this at all, to interfere with their big plans. And I had to tell them, well, there are certain things you can't do because it's in the law. So we'd have to change the law, such as work in daycares, work in hospitals or nursing homes, work in funeral homes. Because again, when you have the SOR label, it's a broad brush stroke, and it's somehow you, because you were caught peeing in the forest, or even caught molesting a child, a female child or a male child, somehow that also means that you would molest a body in a morgue. Sure, makes perfect sense. No evidence of this, by the way. No research that bears it out. No research that bears out that 4% roughly of the people are recidivist. That is, they did something again to catch another charge. And I can tell you, from the time you're on probation on, you are subject to rearrest and to, kicking in your door and stuff. And I hear about it from all over the country. It's not just me, okay? And then they turn around and say, you see, this person's so bad. No. It's not necessarily that. Sometimes it's just because they want privacy. I've shown you instances where somebody forgot to register and went in to say, hey, I forgot to do this, and he was rewarded by being arrested. Why? Because they can. You have vigilantes who are also coming after me, who are saying you did this and you didn't register, and you're not entitled to any privacy. If you did it or you didn't do it, I don't care. We're going to have you arrested, okay? Because it isn't about, protecting children all the time. It's about enabling a system and deputizing other people to create the scam and the sham and the shame, and to continue it going because it brings in lots and lots of money. And worse, it's the same thing with the prison industrial complex. Brings in tons of money for GEO and other services, if you want to call them that provide telephone calls and all the rest. Commissary, where in prisons you can get vitamins, but you have to pay for them. And there are big warning labels on them saying, in California, this is banned because it can cause cancer, right? But if you want vitamins, that's your option. So back to Mr. Henry. This has become such a big deal in Alabama, which has some of the most, if not the most restrictive rules out there. Although I would venture to say that Tennessee and Florida are right there, not to mention Indiana, which has as its rule, if you are on the sex offender registry in Indiana and you go to some place like Florida or Alabama with a more restrictive SORNA rules, you are forever under those more restrictive rules when you come back to Indiana. So, there's nothing there about protecting children. There's everything there about violating privacy rights, violating the sovereignty of children, and destroying families, which goes well against the Fifth and especially the 14th Amendment. So the ironies are all over the place. But you also have here too, you have here the Galt Center, which I've never heard of, the Southern Poverty Law Center, a number of other organizations for LGBTQ rights joining an amicus brief to try to get the Supreme Court to support allowing parents the sovereign right under the Constitution to raise their children. And I get it. There are a lot of issues. There are a lot of issues uh, that you have with social services organizations for the state and federal government going in, maybe not the federal government, but going in and taking kids away from abusive parents. That's really a difficult call. And I have heard recently from somebody on a case of elder abuse where there was no abuse at all, but the social services division marched in like, ninja Nazis and just made a mess of things for an entire year while this poor woman, the daughter, was trying to work and take care of her father and doing a damn good job of it, as they ultimately concluded. But that didn't stop them from turning her life upside down. So there are many, many cases here, folks, that impinge on privacy rights. Impinge on, when I say privacy, I'm talking, of course, about getting on with your life, being able to apply for jobs, being able to be with your children, not having anyone take your child away from you simply because you are on the registry. They don't care what you're on the registry for. That's not important, because if you look at the list of things that you can be penalized for that impact your family and your children, it's extensive. All sorts of things that I've outlined in this video. And, again, we will be tracking this, we'll be looking at it. We hope that we'll be able to find out where this has led. I'm going to do another one here shortly on a case that was dismissed. And I want to demonstrate there that courts dismiss and under the methods, I guess you could say, the legal framework that this particular attorney talks about, but it gives false hope in a way too, because many people also get hammered for, when the courts ignore the very things that guy is talking about. But that's in my next video. I encourage you to look at that Bruce Henry in the appellant brief that was filed. I'm going to attach it here. And the amicus brief that was filed in support of it by no less than, I think, 6 or 7 different organizations. So if you are so inclined, glance through that. And just understand, folks, that, ask yourself, do you really believe in the end of it or not? Are you really going to say that it's okay to continue to go after people in the name of supposedly helping children, in the name of supposedly making things better for everybody's children, when in fact it ends up being a revenge tour or a public relations tour or cynically a money-making operation, as the registry surely is? Ask yourself that question.